Hello and welcome to the Astrology and Spirituality Show for week commencing the 20th of September with Alyssa and Patrick Arundell. We hope you're well. Of course, this is a giant week. Not only does it begin on Monday or Tuesday, depending on where you are in the world, with the Pisces full moon, we also have the sun's passage on Wednesday into the sign of Libra, and of course the autumn equinox, which signals the third quadrant of the astrological year. So a really significant point, because this is a cardinal point, and cardinality, the four signs that are governed by that are Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn, and they're all about action and initiative. So an important call to action in the middle of this week in terms of relationships. But let's just take a quick look at that full moon. So the Pisces energy is very much about the spiritual realm, healing, the more psychological side of our nature, whereas Virgo, of course, is innately practical, very detailed, brilliant for precision and making sure that everything runs tickety-boo. But what we need to find is a holistic balance between those two polar opposites. So if your life is a little bit too practical at the moment and you don't have the time or space, or haven't been able to create that space to give yourself more time to just reflect and think about more healing strands, this is a time to do so. Then again, if we're really sort of doing a lot of wool gathering and have very sort of ungrounded expectations, the energy of the sun can be very positive because it balances that out. So that's a big opportunity. But also this week, Mercury is forging an absolutely brilliant link to Jupiter. Great for deals, negotiations, contractual matters, both in air signs, of course. And Mars, also in the air sign of Libra, is forging a very constructive link to Saturn. So where we can combine energy, but also detailed research and application, that works well, especially through the prism of air, where both planets are located. And the other big influence this week is Venus's opposition to Uranus. So it's a bit of encouragement really to shake things up if we're in a long-term relationship and things have become a little bit too samey and predictable, to try and be a bit more spontaneous and recreate that magic that we had when we first met. Or it is possible that someone could dramatically enter your life if you're single. I hope that might happen for you. It can certainly be exciting. It also could see us a little bit more spontaneous about splashing the cash. But Venus in Scorpio is very, very deep, and of course both are fixed signs, so if there is a resistance to change, that can create some tension. Now, Alisa, how about that Hermetic wheel? Do we have a changeover week this week?
We do have a changeover week. So until the 22nd of this week, we're still in that 10 of Pentacles, which is very much about enjoying life's luxuries, whether they're big luxuries or those smaller luxuries. Let's make the most of that energy whilst we have it, because on the 22nd, we move into the 2 of Swords. Now, so many of us can roll our eyes, can't we, when we see the swords come up for us. And I think the reason why swords are one of the most challenging, parts of tarot is because they reflect our mental plane. And in the world that we live in, where we're bombarded with information, advertisements, social media, people's opinions, points of view, that can be very tough to navigate. And the 2 of Swords is asking us to make a decision. When we get into 2 of Swords territory, we don't know whether to turn left or right. We're at a standstill, a crossroads. We're finding it difficult, but we have to make a choice, because indecision is still a choice. So wouldn't we rather be in charge of where our direction is going rather than letting things just happen to us?
Oh, I think you've explained that brilliantly. And in terms of the comments you've been sharing with us, thank you so much. We have got a winner on the birth chart for this week. Shall I go into this now? No, I've already flagged it. Okay, so I just grabbed the old specs, and the winner is James. His birthday is the 22nd of September in 1969, so I think that might make him a horse. I could be wrong about that, but I think that might be so. And James was born at 11:10 a.m. in Toronto in Canada. Now, James, you don't mention where you're living now, so on the solar return, I've had to do it on Toronto. So let's just have a little look. Elisa will share the wheel on the screen, but we can see that this person's sun is indeed right on the cusp, on the Antarctic degree, 29 degrees 25 minutes in the sign of Virgo, but very close to that sun is Pluto, both in the 10th house. Now, it's a bit of a paradox with Pluto in the 10th house, especially in Virgo, I feel, is that sometimes people can end up in the spotlight, but don't necessarily want to be in the spotlight, or that's what they might say, but actually there's a part of them that does want to be in the spotlight. And because your Pluto is so close to the sun, and you do have Venus in the very warm energies of Leo, but right on your 10th house cusp, I think somehow or another your role is to do with the public or is high profile, even if there's part of you that may have a kind of a slight disassociation with that in terms of your own values. But you do have Jupiter and Mercury conjunct in the 11th house in the sign of Libra, so that's terrific. So that means that you'd be a pretty skilled networker, I would say, and it's, you know, a little bit reflective of the Jupiter-Mercury trine that we had this week, where Mercury is in Libra, like your natal chart, but of course Jupiter is in Aquarius. But it does give you a buoyancy. Now, Uranus is quite close to Jupiter, it's about 8 degrees away, and having Uranus in the 11th house is good because obviously Uranus is the co-regent or the modern ruler, higher octave ruler of Aquarius, and the 11th house energy is very Aquarian. So you could be someone who's quite foresighted, I would say, but your ascendant is Scorpio, and you did say that you didn't, you were very keen not for your surname not to be shared, not that you shared it with me. So Scorpio ascendant is kind of in keeping with that. And like me, you also have Neptune in Scorpio in your first house. So being very creative and creating your own reality has been important to you. But your moon is pretty close to mine, just 3 degrees away in the 3rd house in Aquarius. So you are definitely a communicator. But the moon position for you is in the 2nd decan of Aquarius, so you know that's governed by Mercury, which is exalted in the sign of Aquarius as well. So having the moon in the 3rd house in Aquarius means that you can be quite detached at times, I would say, but again, something to do with technology, media, connecting to people seems to be part of your life journey. Now, where's Chiron? I've always looked at Chiron in charts. It's in the 5th house, but it is actually very close to your path of fortune. Chiron in Aries people don't always find it easy to develop their identity, and I think people who have Neptune in the 1st house can have that challenge as well. You also have a square between your Neptune position and your Venus and your midheaven. So I think, yeah, finding that role for yourself has probably taken a little bit of time, but I do feel that you have to walk to the sound of your own drums. Also, your midpoint between your moon and the sun is 8 degrees Sagittarius. So that points towards someone who's inquisitive, free-spirited, independent, especially in the 1st house as it is, but it is in a quincunx with Saturn. So sometimes I feel that, you know, you've needed to do things your own way. You've probably been quite successful at that. But at times I feel that, you know, with Saturn in that 6th house, in that quincunx, maybe your energy hasn't always been the greatest and maybe has been a little bit, your physical vitality has maybe not always been there for you as much as you would like. And Neptune can also be very dissolving on that 10th house and also with Venus. So I would say that maybe your desire for the perfect love relationship may have been slightly elusive, and you may still be trying to find that special relationship with Chiron in the 5th house. but it's very important to you to receive, it sounds strong, but Venus in Leo on the 10th house means there's a part of you that needs to achieve some kind of adulation, admiration and respect at the least, I feel. You do have Mars in Capricorn, and that's actually on the cardinal point as well, the Earth point. In the 2nd house, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so I think you're pretty good at making money. Now, let's see what's going on for you this year. Well, the big standout from your birthday this year is the fact that the ascendant is 23 degrees in Cancer. So that means that Pluto, the planet of transformation, the planet of, you know, sometimes the dark stuff of control, manipulation, sometimes hidden things, the underworld, well, it's right bang on your 7th house. And you also have Saturn there as well. Now, of course, Saturn has been squaring Uranus for much of this year. And in a technical sense, it does in this chart because it's around about 7 degrees. So in a natal chart, astrologers would take that very seriously. In solar returns, I try to go for the real tight orbs when I talk to clients, because otherwise you can overload people with too much information. But I would say that you know, your Moon and Chiron are very close together in Aries, and your 10th house is in Aries. So maybe there is some pain that maybe you're encountering in your professional situation, and it may be linked to some big relationships with Pluto right on that 7th house. However, you do have a terrific link between Mars and Saturn, reflected in what I just said earlier for this week's prospects. So that's a great trine. Your Mercury is in a terrific angle to Jupiter, and Jupiter is in your 8th house of business, and Mercury is in your 4th house of property and home, but is squaring Pluto, of course. So maybe it's something to do with a property matter or some kind of separation on a relationship that involves real estate, or maybe that's something that you're going to have to negotiate this year. But there are big opportunities to do well with property as well, so I don't think it's all going to be gloomy. But that ascendant in Cancer means that maybe as you're evolving, you're wanting, certainly for this year, you're wanting a more emotional experience in your life. But the ascendant does forge a terrific sextile with your Sun. So I hope that helps, James. Really, this week's aspects are very, very much in keeping with your solar return, to be perfectly honest. And your midpoint, by the way, is 6 degrees Cancer in the 12th house. So that points towards that more emotional dimension developing for you this year. So I hope that helps.
Fascinating chart.
Thank you, darling. So what about the word of the week? Have we got the cookie jar?
Cookie jar.
So just picking the cookie jar up.
Right.
Oh,
So
right.
I'll shake. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it?
Kindness.
Yeah. So the word that we pulled out of the cookie jar is kindness. And I think we could all do with a bit more of this at the moment in the world. It's interesting because, you know, if we go to social media, we can see that, you know, people could post an opinion or a point of view or a way in which they live their life, and people have different opinions about it. And whilst I think that that's great that we have that freedom of speech, that we can share different opinions, I think that we can share opinions while still being kind, by not degrading someone, by not putting them down, just accepting that perhaps their view is slightly different to ours. And maybe before we speak this week, it's thinking, is it kind? Is it helpful?
Yeah, it's funny because we were actually having a conversation this week about some Pluto aspects, particularly with Mercury, for example. So if someone's got Mercury opposite Pluto, they could be quite a trenchant sort of communicator and almost like my way or no way, trying to remake others. And there is a lot of that kind of opinion making being made these days, and we all can feel fiercely passionate about points of view at times. And yeah, it is just remembering that words can really wound, I guess.
Yes, and you know, how would I think it's also thinking, how would we feel if those words were spoken to us, and how would that emotionally or mentally affect us, and do we want to inflict that on somebody else? So
yeah, there's also another concept I'd throw into the mix here, though, that people can not show particular meanness or not be particularly outspoken, but also not show particular kindness. So live in this kind of neutral world when they're not really engaging with what's going on. I'm not saying this is true of our viewers, because I think, you know, people are so lovely in what gets shared with us, but I think I observe this where people don't necessarily engage, but they're not so outspoken. And sometimes you could say at least the outspoken people are honest, and they're taking responsibility for a viewpoint, whereas people who don't really say anything or can actually be quiet when actually it would be a good thing to speak up and stand up against bullying, for example, but don't say anything. That actually, in a way, is... I think Desmond Tutu said something about that, didn't he? He said that if you go along with something, you're enabling it, even if you're not the person actually doing it. So I think kindness can also there's unspoken kindnesses, obviously, but there are also ways that people aren't kind because they don't actually stick their necks out. So sometimes we have to show a bit of courage to be kind as well, because not everyone might agree, you know, with certain things that people decide to be kind about. So just another angle there.
No, that's brilliant. I totally agree.
And what about the modality this week?
Well, this week, I thought we'd use the Angel Dreams Oracle cards.
Right, is this new?
These, I don't think we've used them for a very long time. We used them when we did the Daily Show a couple of times, but these cards are quite good if you're having those epic dreams. So they're very good for personal use, but we're going to try to use them for us, you know, all collectively, and see what the theme for the majority of us is for this week. Would you like to pick it?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. So the word on this card is water. And it says here, emotions, initiation, rejuvenation. And very often, if we dream about water, whether this is a running tap, a shower, whether we're in an ocean, a canal, a stream, it's to do with our emotions. So the first thing to decipher when we have dreams about water is, what was the water like? Was it calm? Was it stormy? Were we frightened? Or were we enjoying it? So that's the emotional aspect of this card. But water also is about rejuvenation. And it says on this card, initiation, which I think is so beautiful. If we think of baptism, for example, that's being initiated into a Christian faith. But water is a very ancient tool that has been used for all kinds of initiations, to cleanse, to bathe, to rejuvenate ourselves. So perhaps a long soak in the shower or bath this week would be helpful.
Notice the Freudian slip though, we don't have a bath.
We don't have a bath at the moment, yeah, and I'm really gutted about that. Maybe you can dream about having one.
Yeah, I have a friend who has dreamt about water in terms of being swept away. So I think that's quite scary. Lack of control, almost like your emotions are overwhelming us. So I always feel that the two polarities that will mainly keep us safe in terms of our emotional and mental health is to laugh or to cry. And if we do those things, we're actually not getting stuck in the middle, which is the sort of where the obviously the stress can build up, because we're not really expressing either. And we don't always feel like we want to laugh. Something really difficult might happen, like we've been to a funeral this week, and it's very difficult to be jolly when that type of stuff's going on, because you're feeling so much sorrow for the family and the person that you were fond of that's died. But it is important to try to get into the extremes of our emotions, I feel, and not kind of sit in the middle, which I think is a very British type of thing.
Yeah,
I can say that because I am British. So
allow ourselves to feel.
Yes.
Feel, be kind, and dive deep into how we are, the very, soul of us.
Indeed. Well, please send in some words of the week. I'm sorry if we've missed one, but I don't think we had one for this week. So word for the week, please, for week commencing the 27th. Any questions, we'd be delighted to answer. And also, if you would like to enter the free birthday prize draw analysis, if your birthday is from the 27th of September through to the 2nd of October, please drop your details in YouTube. If you don't want to do that, you can also write to me directly. Thank you so much for all your kind comments, and great if you've yet to subscribe, if you would kindly do so, please. We're racing up to the 90,000 mark, which will be exciting. We should break that in a couple of weeks, hopefully. And also thank you very much to our patrons. We really appreciate all your support. And again, sorry if we haven't been sharing things. We just really have been a bit buffeted with various events, trying to keep up. Like, we don't have a car at the moment, so we had to hire a car to get to the funeral, and we live in quite a remote place, so all these things take a little bit of doing, but please bear with us and we'll give you an update soon. And remember, you can get your free daily horoscope, written daily horoscope, fired to your device each morning by please subscribing on the link beneath this video. And if you'd like to watch your Pisces full moon deep dive video, that is going to be beneath this video. And also, quite soon after that, we will be sharing my autumn equinox special, so please tune in for those. But from the 18th, it is
goodbye from him,
and it's goodbye from her. Goodbye.